Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast, as we talk Loki Season 2. My name is Jordan. With me on this journey, he was with me for WandaVision, he was with me for She-Hulk, and he was with me for Secret Invasion, Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody? Gotta admit,
It's
I got
going
kind of
good.
confused there with the intro.
Yeah, because we've been doing the other one.
We do a couple different ones, and I was like, wait a minute. No, oh, nope, that's right. We're going back to the other one. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, not Terminator 2 yet. We'll be getting to that. Um, yeah, check out Casey and I's other show, which is called Films for the Very First Time. See, I'm even tripping up on all of these shows. Films for the Very First Time, where we each pick a movie each week, or rotate picking a movie each week. And this week, our Airplane episode is out, which Casey's never seen. So we watched it, we talked about it, and it's up. And then the first episode was Pulp Fiction. So we talked about that, which I had never seen. And next week is
The Goonies?
yes, next week is the Goonies. We filmed these way in advance. We filmed the other ones way in advance, so we're like all confused on which ones are dropping. But yes, it is the Goonies next week, which I had never seen. So check that out. But anyway, we're here talking Loki season 2, which I know we talked about it offline when we were recording our other show. But did you get a chance to rewatch season 1?
So I gotta say no. Out of pure laziness. Um, I could have. As you know, I've been on vacation for a couple weeks. I still have another week left because I've had nothing but time. Like 3 or 4 times a week, I'll go on like a little hour and a half, 2 hour walk for like 6 miles. Come back to my place, shower up, and then done nothing but like watch TV and YouTube videos and play video games. So I could have put it on, but I just haven't. And after watching last night's episode, I kind of wish I had, because I forgot a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I bet. Right.
Did
I
you did
got
you end
my.
up watching through
I
season one?
did actually. I did get my Blu-ray, which
Oh,
I
it
have
came
with.
in already. I
Oh
thought it
yeah.
didn't come out. I thought it didn't come out till next month.
No, this one comes out in September. September 26th. WandaVision is next month. Um,
Okay.
so I got Loki. It's beautiful, by the way. I did not rewatch it on this. I wanted to, but I kind of was up here, you know, doing my stuff, editing and all that kind of stuff, and I binged it in one day, the first season again, which was my first time watching it since the release, which was watching it weekly back in 2021, and I loved it then, but this was like it flowed even better when I was rewatching it on like a you know back to back to back, like what is
Instead
it,
of having
maybe
that week
four
long break
hours
in between or whatever.
Yeah, 5 hours. It's not. Some episodes are like 45, some minutes are 50. So it was pretty good, pretty good to be able to dive in and experience that over again. And it just reminded me how much I love the world of Loki and the TVA and all that great stuff.
And 2021 seems like so long ago.
It does, but it's not. It's not actually. It was only 2 years ago. Now, I mean, I'll tell you, for me, it flew by. Really. I kind of was thinking that this came out last year again. I had to go back and double check it was 2021. But it all just kind of like came right back to me when I was rewatching it. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember like this. I remember that. But yeah, so we're back in the world of this, and I'm glad I did because I wanted to kind of rewatch the finale specifically, and I was like, if I can't get any other episodes in, it's going to be this finale, that I rewatch. But
I probably should have at
um,
least done that. Like, in all fairness, I probably could have skipped
what you
everything
would have,
else.
what you probably would have happened though is you probably would have watched just the finale and been like, oh, I probably should have watched the other episodes.
And the thing was, so yesterday, I watched that putrid Thursday night football game with the
Mm.
Bears and the Commanders.
I
Right?
did not. I did not.
I dozed off once or twice during it, but it was still horrible. And honestly, I could have used that time to watch Loki instead. But I did. And then I remember I texted you after the game. Uh, I went, I got some food ready, and then I sat down and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I remember texting you saying, hey, is there an issue with the volume on yours? Because it was hard for me to hear in the first couple minutes what was going on. Now, part of that is just my apartment is small, so where my washer and dryer is, I was
Mm.
washing some stuff, and that kind of was affecting it. My air conditioner was going, and that's kind of by the TV, so that was affecting it. And also, I realized after both of those cut off was the very beginning, they were whispering a lot.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess I get, but part of me doesn't get why they were whispering at that point. But they were whispering a lot, and that wasn't really helping the whole situation as far as me trying to hear it. But once they got past the whispering portion, I was like, okay, it's not that bad.
Good to hear. You know what we had happen? What was it, like, randomly last week? We have a Roku TV, but it's kind of getting up there in age, so we also have a Fire Stick, and we have the Fire Sticks that way we can also watch like some apps that are not on the Roku TV. But we the Fire Stick has been loading faster than the Roku TV when I'm going to separate apps. So we've been going exclusively on the Fire Stick. And one day, my wife said she had to turn the volume up to 100 on the TV, and it still wasn't that loud. I went down and like heard it at 100, and it was still very soft. We couldn't understand what was going on. I Googled it, and it was some error with like you had to change the settings in the Fire Stick's volume settings, and then it balanced it back out. And then we could have it actually on like 25 and be able to hear it much better than the 100. It was crazy. And I guess this thing has been creeping up over time because we used to have it on like lower. And then we started realizing like, oh, I'm putting it on 50. I'm putting it on 60 to be able to hear. I'm putting it on
Jesus.
70 to be able to hear. And then like the one day it was at 100 and we couldn't hear. Yeah, it was crazy. But so if anybody's having that problem with their Fire Stick, just Google how to change that, because at first I was thinking like, do I have to? At first I thought it was a TV issue. I'm like, this smart TV is like 10 years old. Do I have to start like maybe replacing
Oh,
that, or
yeah. Mine is mine is about 6 now,
Yeah, I think
5 or
mine's actually
6.
8 because it was like 2015. I think I bought the new. It's a 55 inch too.
This one I got the last year I worked at Walmart, so that was 2017 going into 2018. I got a
Right, right.
because if you worked during Black Friday, you got a certificate for an extra like
Oh,
15% off uh, at Walmart. So I used to like every year I would get that, and then I would buy like my big item or two for the year. Like one year I bought like my Xbox One, a bunch of games and accessories,
yeah.
and basically because that along with my employee discount, it basically I just paid for the Xbox One and the rest of it was kind of free. Like I just basically paid for the Xbox One. So I think I remember telling her I had a bunch of issues getting this TV in the first place. Like, got it,
Yeah, if you
and
want
it
the
was
full story, it might be on one of our break room
yeah, it was
episodes.
cracked. It was a long thing, but yeah. So that was like mine is about 6 years old, and I'm kind of worried because it's like at some point I'm gonna have to replace it, and which means I might need to start saving up to replace it now because I gotta at least get the same size,
Yeah. How
um,
big is it?
65,
Okay.
and
Okay.
and then I got I ended up getting the surround sound system of the same brand. I have a Vizio, so I had a
Mm.
Vizio surround sound system that I got at the same time. So obviously 6 years, that's a long time in technology. Like I'm gonna have to replace that at the same time, which is kind of good because they have like Dolby, all the new technology they have for
Yeah. Yeah.
surround sound and stuff. But those things are more expensive. So now, like, I'm looking at like $2,500 between the two. I'm probably gonna have to
Mm-hmm.
drop, and it's just like,
It's crazy. Uh, it really is. At least TVs are kind of still getting cheaper and cheaper, but um, like I remember when I first got my first job, I got a TV and it was like a 20 inch, and I probably paid $100 or more for like the 20 inch back in like 2008. It wasn't even like a top of the line thing, but now you can go and get like $100 TV, and it's a smart TV and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but I guess we should talk what this episode is. This episode is season 2, episode 1, named Ouroboros, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, written by Eric Martin, and it premiered October 5th, 2023 on Disney Plus. The synopsis: Loki finds himself lost to time and torn, quite literally, between past, present, and future. For me, I just really enjoyed this episode. I thought this was kind of like a step up from, like, we both kind of enjoyed Secret Invasion. I'd say more than more than most people, but this was a step up, I think, in the sense of even just production. I mean, like, this looked cinematic at times. I don't know what they were using, the way they were filming or whatever. Sometimes it looked like it was on film instead of digital. Like, I don't know what they were doing, but it looked really, really interesting at times. The direction was really great, and I just loved being back in the TVA and being with Mobius and having Mobius and Loki, have their banter and stuff like that. So for me, this was a really fun episode. How did you enjoy getting back into this world?
so first, let me say I enjoy the synopsis, or synopsis, whatever it is, the synopsis of Loki much more than the Secret Invasion one of like 5 words.
Yeah,
So
the Secret Invasion's like Nick Fury goes on a trip. You're like, yeah, all right.
Fury faces danger.
Yeah,
Can you give us a little more? This
it's
gave
every
him much.
week.
Yeah, like that's been Fury's entire life. Come on, but so I like the synopsis much better. Um, I really wish I would have watched more. I would have watched season 1 again. I did like. I forgot the set design in this.
Yeah,
That it's kind of, even though it is in a completely different location and time moves differently at the TVA, there's no real time when the TVA is happening, I guess, if that makes any sense. But when you look at it, it gives you kind of like a 70s/80s vibe. And I definitely got that when I saw my man with the really big headphones and the Walkman on his
yeah,
hip.
yep,
The Walkman on his hip. I will say that again. The Walkman on his hip. Okay? I know some of you listening to this might not understand what a Walkman is. Google it. It was one of the greatest inventions of all time. Where he's vacuuming up the TVA offices with a Walkman on his hip. It was outstanding. It brought me back to like my childhood. Um, I gotta ask this. I wonder if they have anybody come in to give them, in an advisory capacity, info or anything on the possibility of time travel and everything that entails. Because I know what was known, Interstellar did, right? And you can look at, some people have issues with him, but you can go and look up like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He has his issues with the movie Interstellar or anything that deals with science in that aspect. But that's kind of his job, like that's what he does. But he also gave it a lot of
yeah,
credit in some aspects of things he got right. I bring that up because I was going to school at the time, and I had a guy who was an astrophysicist who was like my astronomy teacher. So I actually ended up having him, and he kind of went through the whole space-time continuum thing, and we went through all that. Then I ended up watching Interstellar for the first time. and a
I
lot
still
of
haven't
it
seen
made
that. That might be a movie later on down the line.
and a lot of it made a lot more sense after having someone explain to me a lot of those aspects as compared to coming into it and then just thinking they made up a lot of stuff. So I mean, it's Disney; they can afford to get like some big names in science or in the I can't even think in one of the damn it I can't think of it in one of those science communities that can kind of help them with some of the thoughts or some of the things that they're thinking of. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, or if it comes out, especially when it comes to time travel, because this one has a lot. There's a lot of time travel jargon in this one.
Let's see. I know they
Physicists,
had
physicists. That's what they are.
somebody. Yes, they did have somebody on Miss Marvel. Like I remember that news came out at some point that somebody was like assisting with them on Miss Marvel because that actually featured a little bit of time travel. No spoilers for people if you haven't seen it, but and also kind of like the physical stuff of her powers and stuff. They were also uh, talking with. So they could have done this. I don't know if you really need to because like I don't know much about interstellar stuff, but that seems like when like Nolan, right? I feel like he tries to strive for more like realism. While I feel like with this, you can just kind of, if you really wanted to, just make up whatever and go crazy with it.
Well, Nolan really did because there's aspects of it with as far as gravity in different places, and because of gravity, however it works, um, time moves differently in different places based on the gravitational forces. I'm not explaining this in a great way. I get that, but basically, like on some planets, time will move differently, or some places because of how
Yeah, yeah.
gravity affects it. And there was a part in the movie where that happened, where and they break it down to where there's things you hear in the movie when they're on a certain planet, and these little ticks that you hear are actually equating to like days or years going by like
Okay, okay.
elsewhere. So they there's one point where they're in the spaceship. They go down to a planet because they're doing something. That's where you hear these ticks or whatever. They get back on the ship. They go back up to the other. They go back up to the ship that's orbiting it. The guy up there is now like a senior citizen. It's like 90 years old or something. But they haven't aged because they've been on a planet where gravity was completely different.
Right, right, right.
And it like that affects
I
it.
think I
Like
remember that from class. I do. I think I remember that from class about like how like you said, gravity affects you differently. So like if you're on this place for a different amount of time, you
yeah,
might age faster or slower, type thing.
yeah, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and what I was thinking of, they talked about a lot in like the Big Bang Theory, theoretical physics, the stuff because all of this in essence is truly a theory of like how would time travel work and black holes and dark matter and string theory and all this other stuff. So I just wonder if they had theoretical physicists that would that kind of help them out because in all fairness, like the Disney studios are not. I mean, I don't know where they filmed Loki at. The Disney studios are right here in Burbank. Like they're not that
Georgia?
far. And there's a lot of Pasadena has a lot of because that's where like a lot of modern rocketry was done and everything
Mm.
else. So there's a lot of those people who work with stuff like that. Because that's even where Big Bang Theory was set was in Pasadena.
Oh,
And
okay.
so there's a lot of people who work in these places who deal with a lot of that stuff. Um,
Yeah, they
and I
usually write in LA, so they would have access to that, and then they usually film in Georgia. So they would have
were you ever a fan of Futurama?
no, I've never watched it, but I know some of it. I've always wanted to watch it, but I just
It,
never got
it
around to it.
you should. It's a
Because I
great
like The
series.
Simpsons, so I think I would like Futurama.
Great series. There's about 3 or 4 episodes that will literally break you down into tears. Like you will be sobbing like a baby. There's one. There's actually two now. I refuse to watch anymore. After I've seen them once each, like so, I just did a rewatch of it not that long ago, And when I got to like, so like I'm watching on Hulu and it comes up with the title of the next episode, and I
You're
was
like,
like,
skip.
oh no, nope, not watching that because I like no. And then I watched another episode and it was one of the later seasons. I think I skipped over it. After I watched that, I'm like, that's on the list. I'm never watching it again. But they had a lot of really smart people. They actually had like many PhDs and various other things on their staff. They
Oh, okay.
actually created a new scientific theory that they ended up creating when they wrote an episode because they did an episode where people were switching bodies. But the
Mm-hmm.
machine they used to switch bodies, you can't like so like me and you could switch bodies, but then we couldn't switch back. We had to get other people involved and they
Uh,
had to come up with a whole mathematical theory of how many people the minimum number of people you would need in
right.
order
To get
to get
everybody back to
everybody's
normal.
mind back in their correct body. And obviously there's
Wow.
hijinks because as the episode goes along, people start switching bodies more and more and more. So once again,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just necessarily switch them back to their old body. But then like so let's say we got like Aylin involved and
Mm-hmm.
DJ from our old podcast, right? So like all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden me and you switch bodies, but then I switch bodies with DJ. But then you could switch bodies with me again, but you couldn't because now it's DJ's. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, I just wondered as I was watching it later in the episode if there were theoretical physicists. Um,
I'll have to browse the the credits, I guess, and see if I can find an answer because I don't know another way to be able to tell. I feel like it'd have to be in the credits if they're
but in all
consulted or something.
fairness, like it might be just like as a special thanks to, or like as in
Yeah.
it might just say like technical advisor or advisor. And look, I know a couple of people. You know, I know someone who works for Marvel, so I know
Mm-hmm.
like I've seen his name in the credits once or twice. So
He's
I
really
don't want, I'm
cool,
not taking
man.
anything away from anybody whose name is in the credits, but there's so many credits in a show like this, especially because they're
Yeah,
using
yeah.
with all the VFX teams they have,
Mm-hmm.
and then they put on credits for like the Spanish language translation.
Right, right.
Then they put up the credits for the French language translation and all
Yep.
this, and you could be there for like 20 minutes looking at credits, and it's just like I'm gonna skip the credits.
So real quick, I just wanted to say for Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, they've directed quite a few things. They did direct 2 episodes of Moon Knight as well, and they also directed one of the episodes from the 2020 Twilight Zone. It was an episode called 8, which is where a team of scientists are investigating a depletion of ice shelves in the Antarctic, and there's like an animal that comes out and like a creature that comes out and stuff. So that's what they've kind of done. Eric Martin, who has written this episode, also wrote the finale with Michael Waldron from last season, and he also wrote the Nexus event, which was episode 4, when they realized that the timekeepers are fake. So he, one thing I like about this is it seems like last season was Michael Waldron being the head writer. He did his thing. He moved on to write other, like he wrote Quantumania, and then it seems like Eric Martin, who was part of the writing staff, kind of got a promotion to being the head writer this season, and he has written. I think he's going to write, yeah, every single episode this season. There is some where he has like additional writers with him, but 4 of the 6 episodes are just him writing the episode. And I think we're going to get a lot of consistency with that. And it seems like in the beginning of this episode, he kind of knows exactly where he wants to take this. And they alleviated some of my fears from the end of season 1, right? Like when Sylvie pushes him and he goes into the TVA, and they show it again at the beginning of this, where he runs into Mobius and Mobius doesn't remember him.
I
Everyone
for,
kind of thought everyone kind of thought that he was going to be like in a different timeline, and that is why Mobius doesn't remember him. And everybody kind of thought, oh, because we're doing the multiverse stuff, he's in a different TVA, and it's going to, like, we have to rebuild this relationship. Thank God that's not the case because I love these two together. So as soon as they could get them back up meeting again, it was really great, and I'm very glad that that was handled within the first like 10 minutes of the episode. They were right back together.
That's one of those things I kind of wish I would have refreshed on because I forgot. Like I remembered there was the whole thing with the guy, and she killed him, but before she killed him, I thought that she kicked him. I don't know, but anyway, Loki gets put through the door, right? I forgot he ended up in that where like Mobius didn't know him, and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
did happen. Unless this is like unless this is like a Berenstain Bears type thing, where
No, no,
people
it's not.
remember different things. I mean, unless this is a Mandela effect, like oh, that did happen. Okay,
Yeah, so what we find out is that he's actually going into the past of the TVA is where he ended up. So it seems to be that in the past, Kang or He Who Remains, depending on which one he is at that point, was ruling the TVA as himself. He didn't come up with the timekeepers yet. He was, he has monuments to himself inside the TVA. In the future one that Loki is usually from, we then see, like in the conference room, right? There is a mural of the timekeepers like weaving the sacred timeline or holding up the sacred timeline, and that is what Loki, kind of uses the staff on that then makes Kang's face show up, and nobody recognizes who he is. So then we learn that they've been kind of wiping their minds every so often, I guess, right? Like we find out that the character that the episode is named after, Obi, hasn't had a visitor in 400 years. So at least like 400 years is happening between the two timelines that Loki is kind of bouncing between at this time.
I
So
gotta say,
go ahead.
one, love the character. Obi is fantastic. Want more of
Perfect
him.
timing for the Goonies episode dropping for us next week
Didn't even
because
think
it's
about that.
Ke
Yeah.
Huy Quan.
Two, I love the intersections and the shooting of Loki is back in a different time, back in the past with Obi, and they're having almost the same conversation that
Yes.
Mobius and Obi are, and it makes sense as you're watching it. It flows perfectly. It makes sense, and it's almost as if as Loki is saying something to Obi in the past, then he's remembering it in the future,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh yeah," and like these. Oh wait, I have that right here. Like, like that whole set of scenes there was just so great.
Yeah, and it kind of opens up people thinking like, "Oh, is this different than Endgame time travel rules because, you know, is Loki changing the timeline by talking and like you said, he's just remembering it now because of the change, or is it as he's sitting there thinking that he remembers this conversation from 400 years ago, it's I probably lean more towards the latter, that it's probably more of a as he's starting to think about it again, he's like, "Oh yeah, there was this weird thing that happened." I mean, it's a long time for Obi.
He
Eh,
hasn't had anybody for 400 years,
Yeah,
and it,
he's never had his mind wiped either because and people say that might be a mistake for Kang, but really, do you want to mess with the guy's memory who's the only guy that can fix anything wrong in the TVA?
not only that, but for someone to say like, do the rules of like time travel matter here? Like as we saw in Endgame, the rules of time don't even really matter there because
Right, everyone aged slower, right? Like he
that's
hasn't
where
aged in 400 years.
not only that, but that's where time comes from. Like they're the ones who control and deal with all of this. So, like, remember last season, dude opened up a drawer and he's like, "Yeah, we keep getting these weird Infinity Stones that everybody in the world like they're after, but we use them as paperweights." and there's like he's got a drawer full of Infinity Stones, right? So like those things don't matter at the TVA.
Right, right. Yeah, the Infinity Stones. Yep. Uh, okay, so that is that is one thing I want to say about just like the time thing. But we find out that Loki is time slipping, and
That's not
uh,
possible.
yeah, it's not possible. What if it was, right?
But it's not
Uh,
possible. You just saw me do it.
do
I
you
did.
think there is a reason that maybe like He Who Remains would have, just spitballing here, what would make him be like, you know what, I gotta wipe everyone's memory now and not show my face and pretty much have these fake timekeepers like because all it takes is somebody finding that out and there's a crisis in faith, right? Like we see that in this episode where the other people who saw that it was fake are kind of thinking we shouldn't prune the timelines anymore. We're doing the dirty work for them, and there's no reason for it because everything we've been taught is a lie. So I feel like that's kind of a mistake on Kang's part, but also I'm wondering if we're going to see those events in this that maybe lead up to him for whatever reason deciding like, oh, I got to kind of pull back here and be anonymous, when I'm being the leader.
I don't know. I think we will get an answer to that. And I say I don't know because I wonder what they're going to do as far as the whole situation with what's his name? Uh,
With
who plays Kang?
oh yeah, Jonathan Majors, yeah.
The whole situation with Jonathan Majors. Now, so one thing I'll say, if you watch the very beginning when they do the whole Marvel crawl, and you've got like little snippets of all the superheroes and villains and various other things, right? He's still in there. Like one of the last things we see, there's still a spot of Kang in there, right? Which tells me at least for now they're not.
Well, they also, just to get this out of the way too, for people that don't follow press stuff, he's in a good chunk of this season supposedly. So, um, I mean, at this point, he's got a trial coming up. We don't really know what's real or what's not that happened to him or to whoever was, claiming, the victim or whatever. So they, at that point too, they couldn't really make any changes. So they're kind of riding this out and seeing how it goes, I guess, before they make any decisions.
Well, so that's what I was gonna say. Like, I think by the time a lot of this major stuff happened, most of this had probably already been filmed. So your options were pretty limited as far as what you could do without having to do massive and major reshoots, right? Now you could also maybe go towards the end of the season if they make a decision to move on from Jonathan Majors. It's not hard to maybe reshoot a couple scenes that maybe or change the endings or whatever. And I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen. I don't know, right? But so that's something I think maybe we'll have to keep an eye on, depending like towards the end of the season. That might give us a better inclination of what road they're moving down with that on, because there is a lot invested with the character of Kang. Now, because he has many different variants, it probably wouldn't be difficult to have someone else slip into a role of a different Kang the Conqueror, right? But depends how you feel about that whole thing. Also,
If we can handle it for Rhodey, I think we can handle it for Kang.
but
So,
there's a difference in reasoning as to why they recast Rhodes and as to why they might have to recast Kang the Conqueror.
well, yeah, for Rhodey, it was just because he wanted more money.
Yeah, it wasn't because of a scandal. Like
Right, right.
so there's a difference. So like that's one thing I'm going to keep an eye on because it like especially for me like in the world of professional wrestling, right? I watched a lot of pay-per-views. I used to watch Monday Night Raw and SmackDown all the time. And especially like if they got rid of a wrestler real quick, it wasn't. Sometimes it, depending on how or what reason they got rid of him for, right? Um, Especially if there's scandal involved, they have like their intro and their opening things as well. And especially if it was someone that was in there, like the one I can think of mainly was Hulk Hogan when he was dropped from WWE 2014, 2013, somewhere in that range, right? Because of his scandal and everything that happened with him.
What
Uh,
scandal is that? The sex tape that he had,
this was after the
or
sex
a
tape,
different scandal?
and he ended up dropping some N bombs on a whole nother tape,
Oh, I didn't know that.
and yeah, no, it was bad. So I'm very conflicted on like Hulk Hogan. I've never thought about the character of Hulk Hogan, person of Terry Bollea. That's a whole nother conversation. But so like when they have the openings for like Monday Night Raw and their WWE things that say like then, now, forever, and they show historical people and there's like Stone Cold and The Rock, and then they show like Andre the Giant and these old things, and then they show their current superstars that they have. A lot of times there was some Hulk Hogan in there, and then after that, like the next time you watched, there was no Hulk Hogan in there. Like, so with some of these things, it wouldn't be hard for them to just like clip out the one little piece of Jonathan Majors as Kang in their little intro of Marvel quote, right? So that's just something for me, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on to see later on if he's still there.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see how it goes. I kind of think that, yeah, I don't know what you do in this situation. I think you just have to, if you're Marvel, since you're not filming, they kind of push back Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty anyway at this point. It's kind of like, okay, let's wait and see. Like, let's wait and see, and then we'll figure out if we can go forward with him, and if not, we'll recast.
Here's a
But
question.
yeah.
Here's a quick question. So I'm assuming the scripts for those are either probably close or already done.
No, they have to restart them. Yep.
Oh,
They
so
they moved
I
on
know
from
they
some
had
of
to
the
stop during
writers.
the strike. I know they had to stop during the strike.
Yeah, but I think it came out right before the strike that they moved on from the writers who were writing them.
Oh,
So I think they're restarting. Yeah.
okay. So even better, you're gonna start. You're Kevin Feige. You're gonna hire a group of writers. You got your writers, and Secret Wars and the Kang Dynasty are coming up. Do you have them work on two separate scripts, one with and one without,
Well, I
or
mean, it's just Jonathan Majors, right? So like, I would write it the same exact way, and then if I need to recast, I recast. Is probably how I would handle it if I'm them. And then you can maybe throw in a throwaway line if you need to about how this is a different Kang from
do
the other
you
Kang.
do you think, especially since everything had to pause and you're basically starting from scratch now, do you think about maybe moving on from Kang the Conqueror? And
No, they're not going to.
do you think of maybe doing, okay, let's have plan A and plan B. Plan A, everything goes forward. We keep Jonathan Majors, we keep Kang. Plan B, we introduce someone else instead of Kang the Conqueror.
I think it would kind of be too late to do that because of Quantum Mania and because of this show. I think you have to follow through on Kang, and I mean, I don't see why you would want to move on from him, because if you move on from him and then you don't, like, it's a wasted character, and he's one of the best. Like, he's one of the big villains of Marvel. So I would keep seeing through it, and my options would just be Plan A, Jonathan Majors, Plan B, another actor. And then I would do the exact same story, because I mean, while he was, because in that case, I think people would understand as well. Like they no, everyone loved Terrence Howard in Iron Man 1, and he was let go for a much less serious offense, and people just jumped right with Don Cheadle. So I think it would be fine. I think people would be like, oh yeah, well, they had to recast because of that guy, getting in trouble, and I think they just kind of roll with it. Um. Okay, so we meet Ob. We kind of talked about him a bit, but his name is Ouroboros. I wanted to kind of, find out what that really means, right? Ouroboros is often interpreted as a symbol for eternal cyclical renewal or a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. It is, if you want to think of a picture, it is the snake eating its own tail imagery. So that is what he's named after. So I think that is pretty interesting because I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean for us going forward, but just something to keep an eye on as we keep seeing this character, who again is one of the only characters to not have been brainwashed, like mind wiped, because he has to fix everything. He even says he wrote the handbook for the TVA. So I'm kind of curious if he's actually more villainous than we're seeing, or if I don't know. I'm kind of thinking of, is this going to be a twist later on, or is it just a fun reference to a name like that?
So one, I love the conversation that him and Mobius had, where you can tell Mobius was just faking his way through the conversation and remembering meeting him, and just kept
Yeah,
getting
I call
everything
you Obi.
absolutely wrong. How are the other guys? There's no one else. It's just me. That just kept getting everything wrong, and just
Yeah.
at no point did he want to admit defeat and just tap out. He just kept rolling with it. Great, just great between the both of them. Great. Two, I think we're gonna be seeing that handbook so much more. I think that handbook's definitely gonna come back. Between him bringing it up and they've showed it a couple times.
He tosses it to Loki. Yeah, I mean,
Loki
it's come
puts it
up a few
down
times.
or Mobius puts it down. It's in the end credits. It's one of the things like where as the end credits are scrolling, like you see like the cover for it. So I think there's gonna be more to do
Good
with
point.
that book at some point where like maybe we get all the way to the end and it's like if you guys would have just read the book, none of this would have happened or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Um,
here's another. Okay, so Marvel put out a tweet today, promoting the show, and it came with a poster. This was the image on the tweet. It says, "Got a minute for safety? Temporal core protocols. OB author." And then it has a picture of OB and has a picture of the right protocols for what Owen Wilson is supposed to do by going and getting, like the temporal core put in the thing and stuff. So they're really leaning into him being the author. And um, here you go. It even says written and developed by Ouroboros, loyal employee and masterful technician of the TVA.
I don't trust him. He is not to be trusted.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, you know, his actor is so beloved and people are really digging the character. It would be the perfect twist, really, because everyone finds him so lovable. I think it'd be hard for people to really be like, oh,
It,
what, like,
it's
like,
short round, man. Come on, it's
yeah,
Data.
Data, yeah. Apparently, I just found this out too. So he's known Kevin Feige for a bit because he was actually the stunt coordinator on the original X-Men. That's crazy. I didn't know he
This
did stunts.
I didn't either, and I'm so happy that this guy, as the kids say, is getting his flowers now.
Yeah.
Like I kind of thought he just moved on from Hollywood for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and especially everything after the last couple of years with everything everywhere now all at once and all that other stuff,
Yeah,
and
I
the
haven't seen
story
that
that
still.
came out, him getting the Academy Award, the story that came out, where Harrison Ford went up to him and was like, "Are you short round?" And just the picture that came out of it, like that just makes me happy. Like the dude's getting the recognition I think he probably deserved for so long.
Mm-hmm. And all right, let's get to some theories that we have here because there is an interesting scene here, Casey, when right before Loki is supposed to get pulled out of the time stream with the temporal core, he gets thrown into the future instead of the past like he's been doing. And as he's walking down the hallway to try to find, a stick to be able to prune himself, he hears a phone ring, and he's walking down the hall. Very Matrix vibes I felt here, actually, with the phone ringing and
Yeah,
like the slow
yeah.
walk down the hallway. Like, it was a lot of
The
Matrix
color
vibes.
scheme as well.
Yeah, yeah. I was waiting for like a black cat to be running across the the hallway. Uh, but so we hear a phone ringing. We're not sure who it is yet, and then we see Sylvie trying to open up the elevator doors, and she says, "There you are." And then he gets pruned. So this has been the hot topic of the day. I've read some theories. Here's the theory that I think is the golden ticket. Okay, and then we can kind of discuss some other ones too if we want.
Okay, so yeah, give me a couple of different theories for this one.
All right, so this is the one that I definitely think is true because I think it would be fun, and I think it would be really just really clever. Who pruned Loki? Future Loki. Okay, so future Loki knows that himself needs to be pruned, so he knows where to be going at that time. But I'm also thinking that the phone that is ringing is for him, and in my opinion, I'm thinking the person that's calling is probably somebody like Kang. Maybe this is like this big send off. Maybe this is the fifth episode of the show or like fourth episode of the show as we're getting closer and closer to the climax. Maybe things are happening that are pretty crazy. And Sylvie saying, "Oh, there you are," I think tells me that maybe she already had this conversation with our Loki now, like, hey, I'm going to appear in this hallway at a certain time. And so she knew it was going to happen. And as it happened, she's like, oh, there you are. So she knows that it's getting close to that moment. Or she sees future Loki behind Loki and is talking to him saying, there you are. So that is my thought there.
Can I give you, before you go over any other ones, can I give
Yeah.
you my?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it may have been another variant of Loki on the phone trying to tell him to either run or don't open the elevator or don't trust Sylvie or something.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I guess. Do you think we somehow ever see the other variants we saw in season one again, like
It better,
alligator Loki and
alligator Loki better come back. Like if there's no alligator Loki in
what
this,
was what's the other Loki?
there was like the
Oh,
original Loki.
yeah, but like the black Loki, his name was like Strong Loki,
I don't know.
something like that.
Honestly, all I remember is alligator Loki, and I don't know why I felt. I think I was just like everybody else out there who was just tickled by the fact that there was an alligator Loki in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
at first I was like, this makes no sense. And then somehow it just sat with me like, there's an alligator version of Loki. Okay, why? Like, you know what? Let's just roll with this and let's go. So if I don't see alligator Loki or something just as
Just
wacky
as
like a
crazy.
groundhog Loki or like great white shark Loki or something, like, yeah, we're gonna have some issues. Um, I don't know. I think, like I said, my money is on. I think it was him calling him, trying to get him, hoping he would pick up the phone to tell him to go or don't trust Sylvie or watch out behind you or something else.
Interesting. So I think that one's the most fun. Having all of that stuff kind of be Loki related, I think is a lot of fun. The other stuff could be future Mobius, right? Future Mobius could be the one pruning him because again, Loki knows he needs to be pruned. He probably tells them later on that he's been in the future, and it probably just everybody kind of knows what that outfit is of him, right? Like that is how you can tell the difference between our our Loki currently is his season 1 look right there at the finale and then and what he's wearing in the premiere here. So I think anybody that sees that would be like, "Oh, that's the one I have to prune." Uh my other theory with this is if future Loki is the one that pruned him, that he will then answer the phone right after he's done pruning him, and that will be, well, that's how we'll get the other side of that phone conversation, in my opinion. So as he walks up, he sees Sylvie talking to his past self. He prunes him, and then he gets to the phone, and then we get to continue that scene. Is my thought here.
Here's a question for you: how much would you be worried about the aspect of losing all your skin if you were Mobius? And how much would you be worried when you see there's a crack in your helmet and he literally just takes some duct tape, slaps it over your
Yeah,
helmet, and is like, "You're good to
you're
go."
good. My wife, that was the part she really laughed at. Like, she laughed out loud at the just the slapping on the duct tape. You're good. I'd be kind of worried. I like the way they set that up though too, where he was worried about it and drew in the dust like skin question mark, and then that is how you can tell it's the future when we get, when we get there in the future. So I thought that was really cool and clever idea. I'd be pretty worried about losing my skin. It looked like it was taking off his whole clothes too. Like it was getting pretty dire for Mobius, and I was actually starting to think he
Oh,
might
I didn't think he was
die.
gonna make it. I thought he was done.
Yeah.
I thought he was done.
I was like, how are they gonna get this? Like, even if Loki gets pulled out, he's gonna have to run over there, and then it's like, well, he the way he got flung over there just knocks them both in safely. But I was actually really worried about Mobius for a moment, and I thought maybe the other scenes in the trailers we had with Mobius was maybe from Loki like time slipping still, because I don't think it worked. And the reason I don't think this worked is the trailer shows him time slipping in places we haven't seen yet, in outfits we haven't seen. So I don't think it's going, whatever they just did is going to work, or maybe it'll work for a certain length of time and then you'll start time slipping again.
Well,
But
maybe
I
it
really
works
want to
just
know
in.
why it's happening to him and we don't see it with like Sylvie when she's at the McDonald's.
Maybe it just works in that TVA and not other TVAs.
True. It
Um,
is it is weird how he is time slipping.
so I will say this. Obviously, I know you don't remember McDonald's in the 1980s. You
Yeah,
were
I
not.
wasn't around.
You were not around then. With that, while I've only driven through the state of Oklahoma. I was not in Oklahoma in 1984, as Sylvie is currently in this episode. Um, that 1980s McDonald's is pretty much how I kind of remember those. The only thing missing is a bunch of people smoking inside McDonald's.
I saw somebody say that too. But here's, yeah, and there's a good reason they don't show that, is Disney doesn't allow it. But
Well, not only that, but it's starting to be kind of forbidden in a lot of TV shows anyway. Like
yeah.
there was a whole big thing brought up in Stranger Things as well, where I guess David Harbour's character it was smoking way too much. They said, and now granted that Stranger Things is also set in the 1980s, right? And yeah, like a whole bunch of adults were just smoking willy nilly in
It's
the
also
1980s.
TVMA. So it's
Like
like,
they
you know.
didn't really care about anybody's health or anything back in the 1980s. But so just in general, a lot of stuff you're seeing, it's not happening as much anymore. I did not know that Disney did not allow smoking at all.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't I forget when they banned it, but they don't allow any of their projects to show smoking.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah. They don't want to set the example. Um so even in like Saving Mr. Banks, which is Disney produced and it's about Walt Disney and like the history of making Mary Poppins, they don't show Walt smoke. The most you get as a reference to it is him like having a smoker's cough,
Well,
but that's it.
and so they tried to rewrite their history on that too, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
look at a lot of older pictures of Walt Disney, when like it shows him, he always has his hands like this, typically, right? And it's because he usually had a cigarette in his hand.
Right, right.
But they airbrushed those out of a lot of photos, and they've kind of just trained people to say that's how Walt used to point. No, it's not
Well,
how he pointed.
that is how he used to point, but he used to point that way because he had a
Because he had a cigarette in his
cigarette.
hand. Okay, like
No,
he
yeah, we
wasn't.
call that. I used to work at Disney. We call that the Disney point. Is what
Yeah,
we
he
would call
wasn't.
that.
He wasn't doing that just because he's trying to be cool to point like in a different way. No, he
But
had.
that's how they
He had
teach us to point when we're there. We have to point
okay,
that
yeah,
way.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they have their people actually point with two fingers to keep up the illusion. Like, just admit, like, okay, some of your previous history sucks. I got it.
Well, it's
But you,
also seen as more less rude to point with the two fingers than the one. For whatever reason, people don't like this. It seems shaming. So you have to point that way. It feels more methodical, I guess. I don't know. But that's
to me,
also why we were taught that.
to me, it seemed like a more of a European thing. Like, I don't know. I can imagine like Europeans pointing or something like that. But that's about it.
Oh, Europeans smoke a lot too. I mean, I went
No, I get
even
that.
in the 2010 to Ireland, and it was like all that was there outside. People smoking. It was
But
crazy.
I'm just saying, like just like come on. Like I know you got all the money in the world, and you own like half the world, but just admit, look, Walt Disney was not always the greatest guy, and he used to smoke a lot. But
Hmm.
we realize it's unhealthy, and we don't want to encourage that to kids. So,
Right, right.
like, don't literally just try and airbrush all of it out like it didn't exist. We know it existed, damn it.
I've been in Walt's office, by the way. I took a tour there this year. I think they did have an ashtray though, so they weren't hiding that at that point. Okay, so the other yeah, so we got to Sylvie. She is in a branched timeline in 1982. So what we also have that I think is really interesting is we know at some point she's going to link back up with Loki because we just saw her in the elevator. So we know at some point. But we also see the TVA and the whoever like that. She has like all these general things on her. It looks like all these medals, and she's talking to like the hunter they call X-15 or whatever or X5, and they're all trying to hunt Sylvie still, and we see B-15, I think is her name, or the yes, the one that is working with Mobius and Loki. We see her see all of these TVA people go into a door to a different time, and she's like, "All of this for Sylvie? This is not making sense." So I do think they're after something more than just Sylvie because they're bringing a lot of firepower. It looks like they're bringing a lot of manpower, and the way that they hinted at her saying like that type of thing, like all of this just for Sylvie, makes me think that they may know more information than what we currently know.
Oh, no, I don't think anyone is to be trusted, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, honestly, about the only people I trust are Mobius and yeah, the other chick there who was working with Mobius. That's about it. Um,
Yeah, it was interesting. They had like a little like mock trial type thing going on. Where they're presenting the information and B-15 is saying like, "Hey, the timekeepers were fake, and we can't prune the timelines anymore because those are innocent people." But at that same time, we also have Loki talking to Mobius, and Loki saying things like, "Yes, the timekeepers were fake, but what they stood for was true." Pretty much, like we cannot allow the timelines to continue to get out of power and get like crazy because more Kangs are going to be popping up and it's going to lead to this war. So then now Loki is totally flipped and he's ready to be. I just kind of found that interesting that, you know, some of them think they're doing something good by breaking the mold of the TVA, but Loki is now fully bought in to what He Who Remains said, which was there's a reason for this and we cannot have it we cannot have this stop. So I don't know, I just thought that was pretty interesting the way that he kind of said that, and seeing Loki just totally flipped. We kind of got it in the finale when he was fighting with Sylvie, but seeing how much he actually has bought into it when he's relaying it to other people, I think is pretty eye-opening on where he currently stands.
Uh, so when do you think we see our first appearance of Kang?
I'll say by the not by the finale. I was gonna say by the final scene of episode 2 is my guess.
You don't think they hold him off to like episode 3 or 4
They
to
might.
kind of build it
I'm
up?
thinking that'll be the hook for episode 2 into 3 is kind of my thought. Either a post credit scene or just like a final scene. So you haven't seen Quantumania, right?
No,
Okay. There is a post credit scene in Quantumania that does
you can
show.
spoil it. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not worried about that.
It's a scene from this season of the show, is how it
Really?
felt. Yes. So at the end of Quantumania, we get to a mid credit scene and it's Loki, Mobius, and I think maybe Sylvie or B-15, I can't remember, in the audience of another Kang variant called Victor Timely. And it looks like 1920s maybe or early 1900s is kind of where they're at. So and you know he doesn't look very menacing. So Mobius is like, I thought you guys said this guy was like scary or like really menacing, and Loki's like, he is, and that was pretty much the full mid credit scene. But so I'm expecting that they just ripped that scene out of the show and just popped it in there. So I'm thinking that will be maybe sometime next episode, or it could be episode 3. I think you might be right. It might be episode 3, and we have episode 2 as maybe a Sylvie focused episode. Maybe, I don't know. Also, they're gonna really tie in this McDonald's thing. I think I had seen pictures of Sylvie working at McDonald's,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
think I saw something like that too.
they have like a McDonald's meal, I think. But also, I was getting McDonald's the other day, and I got a bag, you know, like a McDonald's carry out bag, and I took it home, and I'm looking at the bag, and it says the McDonald's bag featured in, and it says all these TV shows and movies that McDonald's has made an appearance in, and it said Loki season 2. So I think that they're, you know, we're probably going to see more of it than what we just saw. I wonder how hard they're going to lean into it, but
Look, if they wanted to do this right, so back in the 80s and early 90s, McDonald's used to have commemorative glasses for everything.
oh,
So
yes,
they used to have like if they were doing a partnership with a movie, they would have like 4 or 5 or 6 different glasses that would come out
yes,
with characters from the movie,
Batman Forever.
stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
um, like not even mentioning like the Happy Meal toys. I'm talking like they used to have actual glasses, and they were nice glasses too.
yeah,
Like
I
people
had
used to
some.
collect these things. They were
Hmm.
really nice. Then they would come out with Halloween ones and like different things. But if
Yes, you know
McDonald's
what else
wanted
they
to,
used to do? I had a Halloween tape that was Ronald McDonald and like, you know, Grimace and the Hamburglar and all that, like singing or something. I don't know. It had a story behind it, but it was a whole tape.
if they wanted to do this right, they would have released commemorative limited edition Loki glasses with like Loki on one, Mobius on one. You know, can't like they could have put different characters like you
That would have
know,
been cool. What a missed opportunity. That's a good
but
idea, Casey.
but you also have to look at too like the how much is it going to cost to manufacture the glasses, right? How much to ship the glasses? Because
Hmm.
those things get heavy, and then you got to figure out they got to find a place to store them in the store, right?
They have
So,
tons of. I mean, I think if they could do it in the 90s and the 80s and stuff, they can definitely do it now.
but
It's
it's
just
okay.
they're
But now,
stingier now.
but now they have a lot of different machines that do a lot of different things. Like back then in the
Yeah, I
'80s,
guess.
everything was kind of done manually. But now there's a lot more automated stuff, you know. So there's a possibility that they may not have as much room in some of these stores as we think they do back then, and is
So
what they used to have. I'm just
what
saying, like
is
they could have missed out. It would have been great.
I'm going to ask you a question here. This is a very serious question. I want a serious answer. All right. What is the percentage chance of us getting released a McDonald's outfit Sylvie Funko Pop? Because I feel like it's probably 98%.
It depends if McDonald's is willing to license their stuff to Funko.
They have McDonald's character Funkos.
I think that might be the only thing that would hold it back.
Yeah. Or they could probably put her in just like a regular visor and a polo and make it be like fast food Sylvie or something.
Well, you know what? Give me 1 second. Let me see, because I'm looking up to see if there's a Loki season 2 funk. Oh, 8 hours ago.
I saw they had two, but I think it was Mobius and Loki.
Yeah, Mobius. It's Mobius
With the duct tape on the thing. Yep.
Yep. With the duct tape on his helmet and his little mustache. It looks like he's holding like he's a Ghostbuster or something.
It's the time thing that he has to put in there.
Yeah, I get it, but it still looks like it.
Oh, the way he's holding it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's quite heavy, they said. Yeah, I assume it'll be coming later, though, if they have... Look, if they want to make... I'll buy it. If that helps get made, I will buy a McDonald's worker Sylvie Funko Pop.
Like I said, I think the only thing that would stop it, like I said, would be a licensing issue. How much money McDonald's would want for it. And I would say, other than that, I think it might, like you said, they could go with a generic one.
Yeah, just don't put the M on it or whatever. The golden arches. All right. Let's see. And that's in Broxton, Oklahoma that she's landing. Did anything actually happen there in 1982 that we should be keeping an eye on, or?
Let me see. What is it? Broxton?
I know in comics at some point it becomes the home of Asgard. So maybe it's just a link due to that. I don't see anything specifically about 1982.
From Nerdist. There's a comic book president for Asgard in this particular Oklahoma town. And this Nerdist article has a picture of Sylvie in her old school McDonald's uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Broxton first appeared in J. Michael Straczynski's celebrated run on Thor, which began in 2007. After the events of Ragnarok and the death of all the Asgardians, they ultimately reborn once more, this time mortals with no memory of their godly lives. Thor eventually awakens to his true self and recreates the city of Asgard close to the town of Broxton, Oklahoma, a mere few miles away.
Yeah, so it seems like it's just a link to Asgard and nothing about actual... so it doesn't seem like the year is important, except for maybe...
It was the first time Loki appeared as a woman.
In 1982?
Just in general, during his time in Broxton, that was when he first appeared as a woman.
Okay. So again, it doesn't. So I don't think the J. Michael Straczynski run was in 82. So I think it is just a link to a nice Asgard thing with that, and then like you just said there with the tie to the first time Loki was a female in the comics, also in that run with the Broxton stuff. So that makes sense. I kind of like her reason of one, I really like when the guy asks what she'll have, and she's not really answering about the food, but just his like reaction when she says, I want everything or try everything, because she's never had a real life. She has been running around since a child, from the TVA, and she's never got to experience the things that other people have. So she's seeing all these people have a fun time at McDonald's. So you know what that means. Go make sure you get some McDonald's uh, tomorrow. I got some today in
Okay,
honor of
so
Loki.
uh, I'm looking at a thing on Decider, 1982 McDonald's. It recreated by the series with input from McDonald's, and their in-house McDonald's historian.
So
There's a
there you go.
McDonald's historian.
They
I
may
did
not
not
have a
even
time
know.
travel historian, but they got the
Uh,
McDonald's historian.
I forgot she asked, "How do I do this?" Remember, she's not used to that.
Mm-hmm.
Orders not possum, not squirrel, not rat. Something's already dead. Nothing with a face. Okay, I want to try everything. Kid takes her literally, so she's about to get a whole lot of McDonald's and no cash on hand. Maybe that's why Sylvie gets a gig at McDonald's to pay off her debt. McDonald's were staple of menus today. They don't date back as far as the Big Mac, which came out in 1968. Chicken McNuggets were introduced in select markets in 1981, were available nationwide in 1983.
That is amazing, by the way, that McNuggets are like what they're kind of known for the most, I'd say, at this point, but that they are still that new, like early 80s. Like, the McNugget was only 10 years old when I was born. That is crazy to me.
The scene is set in 1982 when McNuggets were bursting onto the scene.
That's probably why they said it in 82, because they wanted him to say about try our new McNuggets.
I don't remember a time without McNuggets. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
I was alive when there was a time without McNuggets. I do remember a time where there wasn't a value meal, where you literally had to order everything a la carte.
Really?
Yeah, the value meals didn't come out until the late 80s, early 90s.
Wow.
Value meals, 1991.
1981 as well?
1991.
Oh, 1991. The year I was born was the first time they did value meals? That makes sense, I guess, why they would call it value meals. Is because before you had to buy everything a la carte, so now it's the value of getting it all as a meal.
New York Times. In 1991, the chain brought out its extra value meals, bundling a sandwich, fries, and a drink for a combination price that ranged from what do you think a value meal would have cost in 1991?
$3.25?
$2.49 to $2.99.
Oh my god. $2 and what cents?
$2.49 to $2.99.
Okay.
I remember I graduated high school in '96, and I lived in Massachusetts. I remember I could get, it was usually the 2 cheeseburgers meal, and with tax it would come to like $3.14.
Okay, so $2.49 you said, right?
Yep, that was
Okay.
probably the hamburger. That was probably the hamburger, fries, and a drink.
Let's check the inflation calculator. Are you ready? If it was in 1991 and it cost $2.49, this year it would cost $5.61.
That's probably close.
It is pretty close because I know my McNuggets meal with is a 6-piece is $6, about $6.50.
You don't use the app, do you?
I do use the app, but I don't use my points, I guess.
I don't use the points either, but like if you go through the app, you can usually find like, or at least for
Deals.
out here, yeah, like especially on Fridays, I think you can get like medium fries for like $1 or something.
All right,
like
let's
that.
do this. Let me click the. Let's not do nuggets, just in case. Let's do something like sandwiches. Okay, if it's a sandwich meal, you're looking at $8 to $9. So it's almost double what it should be from the inflation.
I just opened the app. Out here in California, it's free fries Friday.
Yep, same here. Yep.
So free medium fries with $1 minimum purchase. So
get a drink,
get that,
and then get the free fries. Yep.
and then I usually get like the McChicken and the McDouble for like $3.49 or whatever. So it brings me up to like $6.
Yeah, so you're paying more than what you should according to the inflation calculator.
But yeah, like I said, back in high school, it was usually like I said, it was like $3.15. I would pay for a value meal, and then every now and then they would have sales like two Big Macs for $2.
That's pretty good.
I used to be able to get two Big Macs for $2.
That's crazy.
Now, granted, this is not the healthiest thing for a teenager to eat, but we ain't
Yeah.
got a lot of money, and you're like 17 years old and you're hungry constantly. Two Big Macs for $2, pretty damn great.
Yeah, that's a good deal. Um okay, so you said about Kang maybe being in episode 3 or 4. What's your bet then? 3 or 4? Is that kind of where you're
I would say three. There's a chance maybe we see him at the end of, like you said, at the end of episode two, or like a post, like a
like a
mid
post
credit
credit
scene
scene?
or something. But I think somewhere in episode three we'll see.
Yeah, I think I think by 3 at least, right? Is at the latest. I feel like it's got to be episode 3 because you also need to set up the rest of the
You said there's
3
only
episodes.
6 episodes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to set up the last half. So I'll be honest, I was surprised there was a post credit scene because I'd gotten to the point. If you did not text me and let me know
You
there
would
was
turn it off.
yeah, I would have turned it off, and I would have missed out on. So the conversation we would have had now, we're like, wait a minute, what? There was a scene at
Yeah, I would have been like,
McDonald's.
pause, go watch the scene, and then yeah,
So yeah, like, but see, they did it to us again. We had just gotten used to there not being any post credit scenes, right?
yeah, because Secret
There
Invasion
wasn't
had
one
none,
yeah, I
right?
was gonna say there wasn't a single one in Secret Invasion at all, was there?
Maybe the first episode. I don't think so though. I think we went without any.
And I don't remember one for She-Hulk. Uh,
She-Hulk may have had a couple early on.
maybe one or two, but like I don't remember a ton. What I'm
Yeah,
saying is we got conditioned for so long to waiting through the credits because Marvel always had a post credit scene. Then they changed it up on us and they got rid of those post credit scenes. Now I haven't seen all the TV shows, so I don't know if like Miss Marvel or like the
it's very hit
any
or
of
miss.
those
I,
did.
I I think some do, and then when they do, sometimes it's like just the finale. Sometimes it's just the premiere. It's never like every episode. So I'm not gonna bet that we even get another one until the finale, maybe
But now
because
I
it's
gotta at
very
least
hit
wait
or miss.
around.
Oh,
Like
I
even if I
always let
just
it play.
Like even if I just pick up my phone, just as how when I know it's over, when the little thing comes up and it shows me like, oh,
Watch this
since
other
you
show.
like this, yeah, watch this
Yeah.
other show. Okay, there's nothing else on. Like there's no post credit scene because usually that's also the time it's going to like the French or the Spanish cast or the German
Yes. Yeah.
cast.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, I can cut you off now. Yeah, had you not texted me, I would have completely skipped over that.
Well, I'm glad I told you then, because I was like, should I tell him? He might just watch anyway. I was like, I'll just like give him the heads up in case.
Yeah, if you're like, yeah, I got to know those things. Otherwise, I'll skip it. But now I'm gonna be forced to sit there and watch them, or at least let the credits play.
Yeah, next time I won't tell you. I'm gonna make you sit through these and see what see what it is. Anything that we didn't talk about for this first episode?
Uh, the the crack on the floor. What
Mm-hmm.
was that about?
That was just to signify to Loki that he was what had kind of happened. So, like you said, so he lands in, he breaks it, nobody recognizes him. We get all the old Kang statues and stuff, which he, had never seen before while he was there. And then when he time slips and then sees the crack, and Casey does recognize him, and he says, he double checks, like, what about that crack? Like, he's probably expecting for Casey maybe to put it together of, oh, like, that's from when you landed in last time. But it seems to be that that's how he put together that when he was back there before, it was in the past. Because Casey's answer was, it's always been there. and then that's I guess how he kind of also figured that they have been mind wiped as well.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if there's going to be more significance to it, but I think it's just like a quick thing that they put in there, almost like Mobius putting skin with the question mark for the future. Just something that quickly signifies to the character that, oh, I'm in this other time.
I got to give credit to Owen Wilson because I wasn't. I mean, before season one, I wasn't really sure how he would fit in with this.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of those nothing against Owen Wilson as an actor. He's great, and
Wow.
the stuff he's great in. He is great in.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like his Wedding Crashers stuff, or like stuff he does with Vince Vaughn or stuff like that. Him and his brother, like he's good in some of the things that he's good at. If that makes any sense. But I just wasn't sure how he would fit in and seeing him in this. But no, Owen Wilson, especially with the mustache, definitely fits in this.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was wondering how Owen Wilson would fit in here, but I don't even see him as Owen Wilson when he's in the Mobius role. Maybe because of the way he gets the haircut doesn't look, I'm used to seeing Owen Wilson with like the early 2000s shaggy look that he had, but seeing him with the more gray in his hair and it's, shorter, and the performance he puts on as Mobius, I think is just he really fits in and as a character, and I think he's one of the best parts of the show for Loki, and just that banter he has with him, and that's why I was kind of nervous, like I said at the beginning, of oh from the cliffhanger, like oh does he have to kind of relearn everything again with Loki, but they kind of explain that away pretty quickly and get Loki back to our Mobius, and the show's better for it in that case. I was wondering how much they were going to keep having him time slip, and I was like, are we not going to see him meet up with Mobius in the first episode again?
Speaking of the time slip, I forgot the scene in the
In the elevator?
elevator. Yeah, where it's like, how does it look? Oh, it's not that bad. Oh my God, stop doing that! It looks horrible. And then they show her some weird random
Yeah.
other dude in the corner.
Yeah, when they're like, I love this pan, by the way, when it's like, they do this in so many good shows and movies, but when you have the two people talking and then you think it's just them, and he turns to somebody and
What do
says,
you think?
what do you think? And then it just widens out to see them. Perfect. They do this in Arrested Development, right? When you have when you have Lucille and Michael arguing about Buster, and then it zooms out, and all of the whole board of directors is there seeing this argument, and they're like, oh, I guess it's time for us to go home. That kills me every time, no matter what show uses it. It just works every time.
Just hit where I just remembered that scene in the elevator where he freaks out. I thought you said it didn't look that bad. I lied, okay? I lied.
You could
Looks
see
horrible.
the pain on Mobius's face every time he glitched out. And then Loki just
Oh,
being like, "Yeah, it's not that bad. It's not that bad." And you hear the neck cracks as he's re-straightening out. Ugh, really great. All right. Well, I guess that's mostly the first episode here. I'm
sorry.
sure
There's no
we'll
there's no
think of something.
synopsis for episode 2 yet, is there?
No. It has been screened, by the way, so make sure you stay away from spoilers. Everyone listening, if you don't want spoilers, there was, I think they screened 4 episodes for critics, 4 of the
I know
6.
typically it's at least like the first two.
And from what I've heard from critics, they said the second one is the weakest out of the 4. I didn't read why or anything, so I'm not sure. But so if anybody out there watches episode 2 next week and says, "Oh, that was a step down," just know apparently it's supposed to bounce right back for 3 and 4.
Maybe episode 2 is just Sylvie working at McDonald's in 1982 in Oklahoma.
But to be more serious, maybe it's just Sylvie. like maybe there is no Loki in this second episode or something. Maybe it's like and maybe that's why it was people felt it was a step down of, oh, like we didn't even get our main character in this episode. But I don't know. We'll
Well,
find out, I guess, next week.
you did, because you're getting Loki. She's still
She's still a Loki variant, exactly.
So technically, you're still getting the main character.
No complaints. You're still getting Loki.
But I mean, in all fairness, I don't want to watch 36 minutes of anybody working in a 1982 burgers. McDonald's in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I really like that the 80s are big right now, huh? We got Stranger Things is kind of living in that decade, and now like this show's doing it. I dig it.
I'm surprised we don't have a reboot of the Golden Girls.
Give it time. They're rebooting Murder, She Wrote.
Wait.
Yeah.
This right here is the Peter Griffin meme of whoa.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Cite your source. They're redoing Murder, She Wrote?
Murder, She Wrote, yeah. Obviously, without Angela Lansbury, because that would be very difficult to do right now.
Okay, I've seen something about a movie version on the way. Buy it for $1.
Yeah, it's a movie reboot, apparently.
And that could be, I could see that being a test to say, like, okay, if enough people watch this, let's see if enough people watch this, then maybe we can get the show back on.
Here's what kind of worries me about this, I guess, is not to become a Murder, She Wrote pod here. But hopefully this reboot doesn't like take itself too seriously and like be all grimdark the way things are. Like Murder, She Wrote's supposed to be fun and like light, cozy murder mystery, hoping they kind of keep it that way. But I don't even know what the point of doing a movie reboot of it when like it was never really a movie. They had the TV movies after the show, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
So, I gotta say,
we'll talk. You know what? When the movie comes out, if it comes out, we'll talk about it.
I would probably watch it.
Films,
but I'll be honest. I also kind of want, if they're gonna do that, the one I want more than anything, I want a Matlock reboot.
Oh, yeah, we need the theme song, right? We need the Matlock.
But see, here's where that gets tricky. If you mess with the Matlock theme song too much, you're gonna ruin it and you're gonna turn everybody off.
Yeah, you can't remix it. It's got to be the same exact Matlock theme song.
It can't be the same one because
it's got to be the same one.
It can't be the same. It's too long. It's so long ago. It's got to be enough of where old crusty people like me would listen to it and be like, okay, I can allow that because it captures the spirit and the essence of the Matlock theme song.
You can't remix the sexiest theme song in television history.
I don't know about sexiest.
It is. That saxophone?
Like, maybe Silk Stockings was like the sexiest theme song.
I don't know. Give me Matlock. Give me the Matlock theme song. It puts old people in the mood, I'm sure. But yeah. But yeah, so you know what? We'll say it here. If the Murder, She Wrote film comes out, we'll cover it on Films for the very first time. So make sure you follow us over there if it happens.
If that comes out, I'm watching that movie. Like that is happen.
Me too. Like, I like murder mysteries. I'll go see it.
That doesn't seem like a movie theater one. That seems like a streaming.
It'll probably be on Peacock or something.
Yeah, that seems like a streaming option.
Well, they're doing a Monk one. They're doing a Monk reunion.
Okay. I wouldn't put it on Peacock. I don't know who owns the rights to it.
Universal, I think, yeah.
I see it more of a Paramount Plus.
Ooh.
Because I don't know what network was it on?
It was on CBS, but it was produced by Universal, and it streams on Peacock. So that's what made me think Peacock. And Universal is Peacock.
Murder, She Wrote was on CBS. So I think I, I can still see it being on a Paramount on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, but it would just make like I think Universal would be like, why would we sell it to Paramount when we can put it on ours?
What
That's why, like,
Universal's what is that Peacock?
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Because like Frasier was on NBC, but the reboot's on CBS because CBS was the production company.
That's one of those things I like, especially now, because like, what is it? King of Queens is not on Paramount Plus. I think it's on.
It's on Peacock.
Yeah, all these shows that I had an attachment to in some way and attached them to a certain network because they were on that network forever are now on some other weird random streaming service because
Well, that one
either
is weird
they bought the
because
rights or they just that's who made the actual TV show and you're like, wait.
yeah, I guess Peacock had to have bought the rights for King of Queens because it was produced by CBS and aired on CBS. And it was also produced by Sony. So maybe Sony owns the distribution rights and they sold it to Peacock.
I
That's
was gonna
probably
say
what happened.
maybe Sony owned more of it than Peacock.
Yeah.
But that's not the only one. That's one I can think of right now. But there's a lot out there like that.
Yeah. Well, probably Everybody Loves Raymond too, right?
I don't know what that one's on.
That was produced by HBO. That might be on Max then. It's produced by Warner Brothers. Well, it was produced by HBO Independent Productions and Worldwide Pants Incorporated.
Isn't it David Letterman?
Yeah, that's David Letterman's company. Well, the more you learn as you listen to us here, as now you can find out where all of those shows are streaming from us talking about them. I find that stuff fascinating though, on trying to figure out like where is this thing streaming? Where is this thing streaming? Because before you used to get real lucky when it was just Netflix. Everything was on Netflix. Okay, Raymond is on Paramount and Peacock, so they've split rights. Non-exclusive for Everybody Loves Raymond. Okay, that wraps us up. You can reach us at all of our socials, which are in the audio show notes. So make sure you follow us there. Like I said, we have a new podcast called Films for the Very First Time, where we talk films for the very first time, if that wasn't clear from the title. I just got done recapping all of Star Wars Ahsoka, another Disney Plus series, over on the Pod Awakens, which is the Star Wars podcast I host with. I had some good guests on there. They were Chris, who's on my DC podcast that you can also check out, and Ron, who has been a guest on there a couple times. They all joined me for the 8 episodes of Ahsoka. I think that's mostly what I gotta plug. I have too many podcasts. Casey, anything you wanted to share or where people can follow you before we head out?
No, just just check out our other stuff. We're putting in a lot of work for a lot of these things, and we're enjoying doing them for you guys. So hope you guys enjoy them as well.
All right. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll catch you next week for Loki episode 2.